I found the leaked architectural plans tucked under my windshield wiper on a Tuesday morning, and within 30 seconds of unrolling them, I understood why someone wanted me to see what the HOA board had been hiding. My name is Marcus Chen, and I had lived in Riverside Meadows, a planned community in Henderson, Nevada, for exactly 3 years when this whole mess started. The community sat just outside Las Vegas, close enough to feel the desert heat, but far enough to avoid the tourist chaos. 240 homes, all built around a central amenity area that included a clubhouse, playground, and most importantly, a community pool that every single homeowner had paid into when they purchased their property. That pool was the reason most families moved here. Henderson summers routinely hit 110 degrees, and that sparkling blue rectangle of chlorinated water was not just a luxury but a necessity. The plans under my wiper showed something completely different. Where our pool should have been, the blueprints detailed an elaborate private patio complex with individual outdoor kitchens, pergolas, and exclusive access gates. The units listed were 1A, 1B, 1C, and 1D, which just happened to be the 4 townhomes occupied by our HOA board president Sharon Whitmore, vice president Linda Patterson, treasurer Gregory Hunt, and secretary Deanne Morrison. I stood there in my driveway, my coffee getting cold in my hand, staring at the official stamps and signatures on these documents. The architectural firm was local, Bennett and Associates out of Las Vegas. The approval date was 2 weeks ago. The proposed construction start date was next Monday. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my neighbor, James Rodriguez, who lived 3 houses down. "Did you get the plans too?" I texted back immediately. "Yeah, you seeing what I'm seeing?" "Private patios for the board members where our pool is supposed to be." "Yeah, I'm seeing it. My wife is losing her mind. We bought here specifically for that pool." I called him instead of texting. "How many people got these?" "I've been watching. Looks like someone put them on every car in the neighborhood. I'm guessing all 240 homes. This is insane." The pool was supposed to start construction last month. They kept saying there were permit delays. James laughed, but it was bitter. Permit delays, right. Meanwhile, they were getting permits for their own private paradise. I walked back inside, where my wife Angela was getting our 2 kids ready for school. She looked up from packing lunches. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." I handed her the plans without saying anything. Watching her face change as she unrolled them and understood what she was seeing felt like watching a storm form in real time. "They wouldn't," she said. "They couldn't. We paid for that pool." "Everyone did. It's in our HOA dues. We've been paying elevated dues for 2 years specifically to fund pool construction." "They did, and apparently they're starting construction Monday." My daughter Emma, who was 8, looked up from her cereal. "What happened to the pool?" "Nothing, sweetheart," Angela said automatically, though her voice was tight. "Finish your breakfast." After I dropped the kids at school, I drove straight to the HOA office, which was located in a small administrative building near the community entrance. The parking lot was already packed. Apparently, I was not the first person to have this idea. Inside, the small waiting area was crammed with angry residents. I recognized most of them. There was Patricia Lee, a retired teacher who did water aerobics every morning at the temporary community pool we had been using at a neighboring complex. There was David Kumar, whose teenage daughter was on a competitive swim team and had been promised a pool for training. There was elderly Mr. Jefferson, who had specifically moved to Nevada for the warm weather and pool access after his doctor recommended swimming for his arthritis. Sharon Whitmore stood behind the reception desk, her face flushed, her blonde hair pulled back so tightly it looked painful. She was exactly what you would picture when someone said HOA president, 52 years old, always dressed in athleisure where that cost more than most people's professional wardrobes, and possessing an expression that suggested the world was perpetually disappointing her. "Everyone needs to calm down," she was saying, her voice shrill. "This is private property and you're all trespassing in an administrative office." Private property. Patricia Lee's voice cut through the noise. "We all own this property collectively. That's how an HOA works, Sharon. The board has the authority to make decisions about community amenities," Sharon shot back. "It's in the bylaws." "Show me where in the bylaws it says you can steal from the community fund to build yourself private patios," David Kumar said. He was a lawyer, which I suspected was about to become very relevant. I pushed my way closer. "Sharon, those plans show construction starting Monday. When were you planning to tell everyone?" She looked directly at me, and I saw something in her eyes that was not quite panic but close. "There's a newsletter going out this week." "A newsletter?" someone shouted. "You're canceling the pool that we've all paid thousands for, and you were going to mention it in a newsletter." Linda Patterson emerged from the back office. She was Sharon's right hand, early 50s, with dark hair cut in a severe bob. Where Sharon at least attempted to project authority, Linda just radiated disdain. "The pool was not financially viable," she announced. "The board voted to reallocate those funds to a more practical use." "Practical for who?" James had arrived, and he was pushing through the crowd. "Let me guess. Practical for the four of you." "The enhanced property values for the units adjacent to the new amenity space will benefit the entire community," Linda said, like she was reading from a script. "Your units are the ones adjacent to the new amenity space," I said. "You're using community funds to increase your own property values." Gregory Hunt appeared next. He was younger than the two women, maybe 45, with the kind of professionally whitened teeth that caught the light. He wore golf shirts exclusively, even in winter. "Look, folks, I understand the confusion. But the board conducted a thorough cost-benefit analysis, and the numbers just didn't work for a community pool. Insurance, maintenance, liability, it was going to cost each homeowner an additional $300 per month." "That's a lie," David Kumar said flatly. "I requested the financial documents 2 months ago under Nevada HOA disclosure laws. You've stonewalled every request. If you have a cost-benefit analysis, produce it right now." Gregory's smile didn't waver. "Those documents are under review by our legal counsel." "Convenient." Deanne Morrison, the secretary, stayed silent in the corner. She was the youngest of the four, probably early 40s, and always seemed uncomfortable during confrontations. She kept her eyes on her phone, typing frantically. Sharon raised her hands. "Everyone needs to leave right now, or I'm calling the police for trespassing." "Call them," Patricia Lee said. "I'd love to explain to the Henderson Police Department how you're embezzling community funds." That word, embezzling, seemed to hit Sharon like cold water. Her face went from flushed to pale. "That's slander you'll be hearing from our attorney." "Your attorney or the HOA's attorney?" James asked. "Because I'm pretty sure the HOA's attorney isn't going to represent you when you're defrauding the HOA. The crowd was getting louder, angrier. People were shouting questions and accusations. Someone's phone rang with a news ringtone, and I heard a woman near the back say, "Oh my God, it's on the news already." Sure enough, someone had sent the leaked plans to local media. By noon, every Las Vegas news station was running the story. HOA board accused of misappropriating funds for private construction was trending on local social media. I went home for lunch and found Angela on her laptop, already deep into research. "I've been reading Nevada HOA law," she said. "What they're doing is absolutely illegal. HOA boards are bound by fiduciary duty. They can't use community funds for personal benefit. And according to our CC and Articus," she pulled up another document, Any major change to planned amenities requires a vote of the homeowners. They can't just unilaterally cancel the pool. So what do? We call an emergency homeowner meeting. According to our bylaws, if 10% of homeowners request it, the board has to hold one within 14 days. I started making calls. James made calls. Patricia made calls. By that evening, we had signatures from 60 homeowners, more than double the required 10%. We submitted the formal request to the HOA board by email, certified mail, and hand delivery to be absolutely certain. Sharon's response came at 9 p.m. via a community-wide email. The board has received a request for a special meeting. However, due to scheduling conflicts, the earliest available date is 60 days from now. A notice will be posted per Nevada HOA statutes. 60 days, Angela read aloud. Construction starts in 6 days. By the time we have a meeting, they'll have already broken ground. David Kumar had apparently anticipated this. His email went out to everyone who had signed the petition within minutes. Nevada Revised Statutes 116.31085 requires HOA boards to hold emergency meetings within 14 days when properly requested. 60 days is non-compliant. I'm filing an injunction tomorrow morning in Clark County District Court to halt construction and compel the meeting. If anyone wants to join as a co-plaintiff, contact me. 15 people, including Angela and me, signed on as co-plaintiffs that night. The next morning, I woke up to find my trash cans overturned in my driveway and garbage strewn across my lawn. At first, I thought it was animals, but then I saw that my neighbors who had signed the petition had the same problem. James's car had been keyed. Patricia Lee found a violation notice on her door claiming her mailbox was non-compliant with community standards, even though her mailbox had been there for 8 years without issue. They're retaliating, Angela said, photographing the mess. Document everything. The violation notices kept coming. Suddenly, people who had lived here for years without problems were being cited for grass that was a 1/4 inch too tall, for leaving their garage doors open for more than 2 hours, for holiday decorations that were allegedly against HOA rules even though those same decorations had been displayed for years. I got 3 violation notices in 1 week. My house number was apparently the wrong font. My front door wreath was visual clutter. My car was parked improperly in my own driveway, even though it was in the exact same spot I had parked it for 3 years. Each violation came with a $50 fine. If unpaid within 10 days, the fine doubled. If still unpaid, the HOA could place a lien on your property. This is harassment, I told David Kumar when 15 of us met at a coffee shop in Henderson to discuss strategy. It's absolutely harassment, he agreed. And it's going to be Exhibit B in our lawsuit. Exhibit A is the misappropriation of funds, but this retaliatory enforcement is equally illegal. Nevada law specifically prohibits HOAs from selective enforcement and retaliation against homeowners who exercise their rights. The injunction hearing was scheduled for the following week. In the meantime, word had spread beyond our community. An investigative reporter from the Las Vegas Review-Journal named Sarah Mitchell reached out to me. I agreed to an interview, as did several other homeowners. The article ran 3 days before the hearing. It was thorough and damning. Sarah had done her homework. She had obtained copies of the HOA budgets for the past 3 years, which showed that homeowners had collectively paid $847,000 into a special assessment fund specifically designated for pool construction. She had interviewed the original developer of Riverside Meadows, who confirmed that the pool was a promised amenity and that all marketing materials had featured it prominently. She had even tracked down the architectural firm, Bennett and Associates, whose junior architect spoke on condition of anonymity. and confirmed that the patio project was being billed to the HOA but designed exclusively for private use by the 4 board members. Most devastatingly, Sarah had discovered that Sharon Whitmore's husband owned a construction company, Desert Oasis Builders, which had submitted the winning bid for the patio construction. The bid was $680,000, nearly all of the pool fund. The article included a quote from a Nevada real estate attorney who stated plainly, "This appears to be textbook self-dealing and misappropriation of community funds." If these allegations are accurate, the board members could face both civil and criminal liability. The morning the article published, I watched from my window as a Henderson police cruiser pulled up to Sharon's townhouse. 2 officers went inside and stayed for 20 minutes. They left without arresting anyone, but the message was clear. This was now on law enforcement's radar. The injunction hearing took place on a Thursday morning at the Clark County District Court in Las Vegas. The courtroom was packed. Homeowners filled the gallery. Local news cameras waited outside since cameras weren't allowed in the courtroom itself. Our attorney was David Kumar, representing the 15 co-plaintiffs. The HOA board had hired a Las Vegas firm called Rothstein & Associates. Their attorney, a polished man in his 60s named Martin Rothstein, looked expensive and competent. The judge was Honorable Patricia Delgado, a no-nonsense jurist who had a reputation for moving quickly through her docket. David presented our case first. He laid out the timeline. The pool had been a promised amenity since the community was developed in 2019. Homeowners had paid special assessments totaling $847,000. The board had repeatedly claimed permit delays, while secretly obtaining permits and plans for a private patio project that would benefit only the 4 board members. Construction was scheduled to begin in 3 days. We were requesting a temporary injunction to halt construction and compel an emergency homeowners meeting. Martin Rothstein stood up and I braced myself. But his argument was weak, and I could see Judge Delgado wasn't buying it. He claimed the board had authority under the bylaws to make operational decisions. He claimed the pool had become financially unfeasible. He claimed the patio project would benefit the entire community by enhancing property values. "Mr. Rothstein," Judge Delgado interrupted, "I've reviewed the architectural plans. These patios have private access gates. They have individual outdoor kitchens. They're attached directly to 4 specific units. How exactly does this benefit homeowners who don't live in those units? The enhanced aesthetic of the community center area will provide visual and monetary benefits to all residents, Your Honor." "That's a stretch, Counselor." She looked down at her notes. "I'm also concerned about these allegations of selective enforcement and retaliatory fines against homeowners who requested this meeting. Do you have a response to that?" The HOA board maintains consistent enforcement standards in accordance with the community's CC and ARTICS. David stood up. "Your Honor, if I may, we've documented 53 violation notices issued in the past 2 weeks. 47 of those were issued to homeowners who signed the petition for an emergency meeting. That's not consistent enforcement, that's retaliation." Judge Delgado nodded slowly. "I'm inclined to agree. I'm issuing a temporary restraining order halting any construction in the community amenity area, pending a full hearing. I'm also ordering the HOA board to hold an emergency homeowners meeting within 14 days, consistent with Nevada Revised Statutes 116.31085. Additionally, I'm ordering the board to cease all enforcement actions and fine assessments until after that meeting. Any fines issued in the past 30 days are hereby suspended pending review." The courtroom erupted in quiet celebration. Sharon Whitmore, sitting in the front row with the other board members, looked like she had been slapped. But Judge Delgado wasn't finished. I'm also ordering the HOA board to produce complete financial records, including all budgets, expenditures, and contracts related to both the pool project and the proposed patio project. These documents are to be made available to all homeowners at least 7 days before the emergency meeting. If I find that any documents have been destroyed, concealed, or altered, I will refer this matter to the district attorney's office for criminal investigation. We walked out of that courtroom feeling victorious. The news cameras descended immediately, and David gave a brief statement emphasizing that homeowners had rights and that HOA boards were not above the law. That evening, I got a phone call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Mr. Chen," the voice was female, nervous, young. "Yes, this is Deanne Morrison." "From the HOA board," I straightened up. Angela, sitting next to me on the couch, mouthed, "Who is it?" I mouthed back, "Deanne." "I need to talk to you," Deanne continued. "Not officially, just... I need someone to know the truth." "Okay. Can we meet? Somewhere private." We agreed to meet at a park in Henderson, away from Riverside Meadows. I brought James with me for a witness. Deanne showed up 20 minutes late, looking over her shoulder like she expected to be followed. She sat down at a picnic table and immediately started talking. I didn't want any of this. "I need you to know that. I joined the board because Sharon asked me to, and I thought it would be a good way to stay involved in the community. But then Sharon started talking about the pool being too expensive, and Linda kept saying we deserved something nice after all the work we'd done for the community. And Gregory ran all these numbers that made it seem like we'd actually be saving everyone money." "But you knew it was wrong," James said. "I knew it felt wrong. But Sharon kept saying it was legal, that we had the authority, that it was a smart business decision. She said the pool would bankrupt the HOA within 5 years because of maintenance and insurance costs." Deanne pulled out her phone. "But then I started looking at the actual numbers. The pool was never going to bankrupt us. Sharon's husband's company submitted a bid that was 3 times higher than what the pool would have cost, and I found emails." She turned her phone toward us. On the screen was an email chain between Sharon and her husband, Rick Whitmore. I read quickly, my heart pounding. Sharon to Rick: "Pool project is dead, got the board to approve patio instead. Make sure your bid comes in just under the pool budget so it looks reasonable." Rick to Sharon: "What about the other bids?" Sharon to Rick: "There won't be other bids. Gregory is handling the contractor selection. You're the only one being asked to submit." There were more emails, dozens of them. They detailed how Sharon had manipulated the board, how she had created fake financial projections to make the pool seem unaffordable, how she had ensured her husband's company would get the contract without competitive bidding. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. Deanne's eyes were wet. "Because I have kids. I have a daughter who's 12 and she looks up to me, and I can't have her grow up thinking this is okay. I can't be part of this anymore. Sharon told us all to delete our emails, but I didn't. I kept everything." "Will you testify?" She hesitated. "If it comes to that, yes, but I need protection." "Sharon is. She's vindictive. I'm terrified of what she'll do." "We'll protect you," James said. "David Kumar is a good attorney. He'll know how to handle this." Deanne forwarded all the emails to me right there. Hundreds of messages that documented the entire conspiracy. It was more than we had hoped for. The emergency homeowners meeting was scheduled for the following Saturday at a local high school auditorium, since our clubhouse was too small. The HOA was required to provide notice to all homeowners, and they did. A single-paragraph email sent at midnight the night before the deadline, but everyone showed up anyway. All 240 homeowners had received personal calls or texts from the organizing committee that David, James, Angela, and I had formed. We had printed agendas. We had financial documents that David had obtained through the court order, and we had Deanne's emails. The auditorium was packed by the time the meeting started at 10 a.m. Entire families showed up. Elderly residents who rarely left their homes showed up. Even people who had never attended an HOA meeting before showed up. Sharon called the meeting to order, looking like she had aged 5 years in 2 weeks. Linda sat next to her, stony-faced. Gregory kept checking his phone. Deanne sat at the far end of the table, not making eye contact with anyone. Sharon tried to control the meeting. "We'll start with a reading of the previous minutes. Point of order," David Kumar stood up. "This is an emergency meeting called by homeowners. Under Robert's Rules of Order and Nevada HOA law, the agenda is controlled by the petitioning homeowners, not the board." "That's not." "It is," David said firmly. "I have the statute printed out if you'd like to review it." Judge Delgado's order had been clear. Sharon had no choice. She sat down, seething. I stood up, my hands shaking but my voice steady. "The purpose of this meeting is to address the board's decision to cancel the community pool and instead build private patios for the 4 board members. We're here to present evidence of financial mismanagement and self-dealing and to call for a vote of no confidence in the current board." For the next hour, we presented our case. David displayed the financial records on a projector. We showed how the pool fund had been fully funded. We showed the architectural plans for the private patios. We showed how Sharon's husband's construction company had been given the contract without competitive bidding. We showed the email evidence that Diane had provided, including Sharon's explicit instructions to make the pool seem financially unfeasible while funneling the money to her husband's company. The room was silent except for occasional gasps and angry murmurs. When we finished, Sharon tried to defend herself, but her arguments were weak and contradictory. She claimed the emails were taken out of context. She claimed her husband's company had simply submitted the best bid. She claimed she had acted in the community's best interest. No one was buying it. Patricia Lee stood up. "I move that we hold an immediate vote of no confidence in the current board and remove all 4 members effective immediately." The vote was nearly unanimous. 237 homeowners voted to remove the board. Only 3 abstained. Even Linda's own neighbors voted against her. Sharon stood up, her face red. "You can't do this. We're elected officials. You need to follow the proper procedures." "We just did," David said. Nevada law allows homeowners to remove board members by majority vote when there's evidence of misconduct. I'd suggest you leave quietly before we discuss criminal referrals. They left. All 4 of them, walking out of the auditorium while 240 homeowners watched in silence. We held elections on the spot. Patricia Lee was elected president. David Kumar became vice president. A retired accountant named Helen Wu became treasurer. And a young father named Tom Brennan, who was a paralegal, became secretary. The new board's first act was to vote unanimously to proceed with the original pool construction and to refer the financial irregularities to the Nevada Real Estate Division and the Clark County District Attorney's Office. The investigation moved quickly. The District Attorney's Office assigned a prosecutor named Rebecca Torres, who specialized in white-collar crime. She reviewed the evidence we had compiled, interviewed Deanne Morrison at length, and subpoenaed additional records from the HOA, the architectural firm, and Desert Oasis builders. 3 weeks after the emergency meeting, Sharon Whitmore and her husband Rick were arrested and charged with theft, embezzlement, and misconduct by a corporate fiduciary. Gregory Hunt was charged as an accomplice for his role in manipulating the contractor selection process. Linda Patterson was charged with conspiracy. Deanne Morrison was granted immunity in exchange for her testimony. The story made regional and then national news. It became a cautionary tale about HOA corruption and the importance of homeowner vigilance. Sarah Mitchell from the Las Vegas Review-Journal won an award for her investigative reporting. The legal proceedings took months. Sharon and Rick both refused plea deals, insisting they had done nothing wrong. The trial was held in the fall, and I attended every day of it along with dozens of other Riverside Meadows residents. The evidence was overwhelming. The emails alone were damning, but the prosecution also presented testimony from the architectural firm, financial experts who explained how the funds had been misappropriated, and homeowners who described the retaliatory enforcement actions. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours, guilty on all counts. Sharon Whitmore was sentenced to 4 years in prison and ordered to pay $847,000 in restitution. Rick Whitmore received 3 years. Gregory Hunt received 2 years and a suspended sentence with probation. Linda Patterson received 18 months. Deanne Morrison never returned to Riverside Meadows. She sold her townhouse and moved to California. But before she left, she came to see me one last time. "Thank you for not hating me," she said. "You did the right thing in the end. That takes courage. I should have done it sooner, maybe, but you did it when it mattered most." The pool construction began in January, 8 months after the scandal broke. We had to delay because the HOA's finances were in chaos, and we needed time to recover the stolen funds through the restitution order and an insurance claim against the board's fiduciary liability policy. But it was worth the wait. The pool that opened in May was beautiful, Olympic-sized, with a separate kiddie pool, a large deck area, and a state-of-the-art filtration system. It came in under budget because the new board solicited competitive bids and managed the project transparently. The grand opening was a community celebration. Families showed up with floats and pool toys. Patricia Lee, our new president, gave a short speech about community resilience and the importance of accountability. Then she cut a ribbon, and dozens of kids jumped into the water simultaneously, shrieking with joy. I stood at the edge of the pool, watching Emma and my son Lucas splash around with their friends. Angela came up beside me, slipping her hand into mine. "We did it," she said. "Yeah, we did. Do you think it could happen again? A different board, same problems?" "Maybe." But now everyone's paying attention. People show up to board meetings. They ask questions. They demand financial transparency. That's the real victory here. People learned that they have power if they're willing to use it. James walked over with his wife Maria and their kids. "Hey, I heard the city inspector signed off on everything this morning. We're officially approved for occupancy at full capacity." "That's great news." "It is, and you know what else?" I joined the Architectural Review Committee. "Figure I should stay involved, make sure we don't elect any more criminals." I laughed. "That's the spirit." Over the following months, life in Riverside Meadows returned to normal, but it was a better normal. The new board operated with complete transparency, publishing detailed financial reports every month and holding regular town halls where homeowners could ask questions. Enforcement of community rules was consistent and fair, with a clear appeals process. Most importantly, major decisions were put to community votes. The 4 townhomes that had been owned by the former board members were sold within a year. The new owners were welcomed without prejudice. We didn't believe in guilt by association. Sharon Whitmore's unit was purchased by a young couple with twin toddlers. They introduced themselves at a community barbecue, nervous about what people would think. "You're not responsible for what happened before," I told them. "Welcome to the neighborhood." The husband, whose name was Carlos, looked relieved. "We almost didn't buy here because of the history." But then we saw how the community came together, how you all fought for what was right. That's the kind of place we want to raise our kids. That sentiment was echoed by many of the new residents who moved to Riverside Meadows in the following years. The scandal, ironically, had made the community stronger and more attractive. Property values increased not despite what had happened, but because of how we had responded to it. 2 years after the trial, I ran into Sarah Mitchell at a coffee shop in Las Vegas. She was working on a follow-up story about HOA reforms in Nevada. "Your case changed things," she told me. The state legislature passed 3 new laws strengthening homeowner rights and increasing criminal penalties for HOA board corruption. They're calling it the Riverside Meadows Reform Package. "I didn't know that. You should be proud. You didn't just save your own community, you helped protect homeowners across the state." I thought about that conversation a lot. We had started this fight because we wanted a pool for our kids. We had ended up exposing a criminal conspiracy, sending corrupt officials to prison, and changing state law. It was more than I had ever imagined when I found those architectural plans under my windshield wiper. Sometimes I wondered who had leaked those plans. It was never revealed publicly. I had my suspicions. Maybe a disgruntled employee at the architectural firm, maybe someone in the permit office who thought something seemed fishy, maybe even someone on the board who had developed a conscience. Deanne always denied it was her, and I believed her. Whoever it was, they had done our community an enormous service. 3 years after the scandal, on a blazing hot July afternoon, I sat by the pool watching Emma, now 11, practice her diving. Lucas, 9, was playing Marco Polo with a group of kids. Angela was reading a book under an umbrella, occasionally looking up to check on the kids. Patricia Lee was there too, her term as president having ended but still active in the community. She was doing laps, her consistent morning routine. "Hey, Marcus," a voice called. It was Tom Brennan, who had served 1 term as secretary before rotating off the board. His kids went to school with mine. "You coming to the board meeting on Tuesday?" "Wouldn't miss it," I said. "Good. We're voting on whether to add solar panels to the clubhouse roof. Should reduce our electricity costs by 30%. I'll be there." And I was. That Tuesday evening, about 40 homeowners showed up to the board meeting. It was held in the clubhouse, open to everyone, with the full agenda posted a week in advance. The financial report was thorough. The debate about solar panels was substantive, with multiple homeowners offering opinions and asking questions. The vote was taken openly and the measure passed. It was boring. Beautifully, wonderfully boring. That's what good governance looks like, I realized. No drama, no corruption, no secret deals. Just ordinary people making reasonable decisions for the benefit of the community. After the meeting, I walked home through the warm Nevada evening, past houses with lights glowing in windows, past the playground where kids were still playing even though it was late, past the pool area where the underwater lights had just turned on, making the water glow blue in the gathering darkness. My phone buzzed. It was a text from David Kumar, who had moved to California for a job but stayed in touch. "Hey, saw the meeting minutes. Solar panels, huh? Living the dream," I texted back. "You know it, boring is beautiful. Amen to that. Give my best to everyone." When I got home, Angela was putting the kids to bed. I helped Lucas brush his teeth while she read Emma a chapter from their current book. Then we tucked them in, turned off the lights, and went downstairs. "Good meeting?" Angela asked. "Productive." "Boring, perfect," she smiled. "Who would have thought boring would feel like such an accomplishment? Anyone who's lived through what we lived through." We sat on the back patio, our actual patio, not some illegally constructed private amenity, and looked up at the desert stars. The air was still warm, but there was a slight breeze that made it bearable. "Do you ever think about Sharon and the others?" Angela asked. "Wonder what they're doing?" "Sometimes." "I heard Sharon got out early for good behavior. 6 months ago, I think. I don't know where she went." Probably not Nevada. Probably not. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Angela said, I'm glad we fought. Even though it was stressful and scary, I'm glad we didn't just accept it. Me too. And I'm glad we have the pool, the kids love it. The whole community loves it. It was worth fighting for. The next morning, I woke up early and went for a run through the neighborhood. The sun was just coming up, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I passed other early risers, people walking dogs, getting newspapers, heading out for work. At the pool, I saw the maintenance guy, Alberto, testing the water chemistry and skimming leaves from the surface. He had been hired by the new board and took enormous pride in his work. Morning, Marcus, he called. Morning, Alberto, how's she looking? Perfect, crystal clear, ready for another day. That's what I like to hear. I completed my loop and headed home where the smell of coffee was already drifting from the kitchen. Angela was up making breakfast before the kids woke up. Run good? She asked. Yeah. Beautiful morning. She poured me a cup of coffee. I was thinking, this summer has been so nice. The pool, the community events, no HOA drama, it's everything we hoped for when we moved here. It really is. We should appreciate it, not take it for granted. I don't think anyone in this community will take it for granted ever again. We all learned what can happen when people aren't paying attention. Emma wandered downstairs, already in her swimsuit, even though it was only 7 in the morning. Can I go to the pool when it opens? Sure, honey, after breakfast. Yes, she pumped her fist in celebration. Lucas followed a few minutes later, also in swim trunks. Apparently, the plan for the day had already been decided. After breakfast, we all walked to the pool together. It opened at 8 on weekends, and there were already a dozen families waiting at the gate. The kids ran ahead, eager to claim their favorite spots. I stood at the entrance for a moment, looking at the scene, parents setting up chairs and umbrellas, kids lining up for the diving board, the smell of sunscreen and chlorine. The sound of laughter and splashing water. This was what we had fought for, not just a pool but a principle. The idea that communities should be governed fairly, that leaders should be held accountable, that ordinary people have the power to stand up against corruption and win. It had been a hard fight. There had been moments when I wanted to give up, when the stress and conflict seemed like too much. But we had persevered and we had won, and now we had something worth celebrating. Patricia Lee walked up beside me, thinking deep thoughts, just appreciating the view. It's a good view, we earned it. We did. She looked at me thoughtfully. You know, when this all started, I was so angry at Sharon, at the board, at the whole situation, but now, looking back, I'm almost grateful it happened. Grateful. It taught us something important. It brought us together as a community. Before the scandal, most people didn't know their neighbors. Now look around. Everyone knows everyone. People care about what happens here. They're invested. She was right. The scandal had transformed Riverside Meadows from a collection of individual homeowners into a real community. People talked to each other now. They looked out for each other. They showed up for meetings and events. They gave a damn. Plus, Patricia added with a grin, we have a really nice pool, I laughed. That we do. The summer passed in a blur of pool days and community barbecues and board meetings where we discussed mundane things like landscaping contracts and parking regulations. It was blissfully uneventful. In August, the local news ran a 3-year anniversary story about the scandal. Sarah Mitchell interviewed several of us, including me. The segment focused on how the community had recovered and the legal reforms that had been implemented statewide. At the end of the segment, they showed footage of kids playing in the pool, and Sarah's voiceover said, "Sometimes justice prevails. Sometimes communities come together and fight for what's right. And sometimes the good guys actually win." Emma watched the segment with me. "Daddy, is that you on TV?" "Yeah, sweetie. You're famous." Not really, just did what needed to be done. You saved our pool. A lot of people saved the pool. It was a team effort. She thought about that for a moment. Can I help save things when I'm older? I hope you do, honey. The world needs people who are willing to stand up for what's right. That conversation stayed with me. What kind of example were we setting for our kids? What lessons were they learning from all this? I hoped they were learning that injustice should be challenged, that authority should be questioned when it's abused, that ordinary people have extraordinary power when they work together. Those were lessons worth teaching. In September, the HOA held annual elections. The entire board, Patricia, David's replacement, Helen, and Tom's replacement, ran unopposed and were re-elected. It was a vote of confidence in their transparent, competent leadership. At the annual meeting, Helen Wu presented the financial report. We were in excellent shape. The restitution payments from Sharon and the others had been fully received. The insurance settlement had been paid. The pool was operating slightly under budget. We even had enough surplus to start a reserve fund for future major repairs and improvements. This is what responsible financial management looks like, Helen said, and everyone applauded. The meeting ended with a community picnic by the pool. People brought food to share, and we ate and talked and watched the sunset over the desert. I found myself in conversation with Carlos, the young father who had bought Sharon's old townhouse. "How's your first year in the neighborhood been?" I asked. "Honestly, amazing. This is the friendliest community I've ever lived in. Everyone has been so welcoming." "I'm glad to hear that. And my boys love the pool. We're out there every day. It's worth every penny of our HOA dues." That's exactly what it should be. Your dues should go toward amenities that benefit everyone, managed responsibly by people you trust. It's sad that shouldn't be revolutionary, but it kind of is. I have friends in other HOAs who deal with crazy boards and arbitrary rules and zero transparency. They're jealous when I tell them how things work here. Tell them they have rights. Tell them they can demand accountability. I have. I've been sending them the news articles about what happened here. You guys are kind of an inspiration. That was humbling. We had never set out to be an inspiration. We had just wanted our pool. But sometimes fighting for something simple and fair can resonate beyond your expectations. As fall turned to winter, the pool got less use. Even in Nevada, winter evenings are cold. But the community spirit remained strong. We had holiday parties and community cleanups and regular board meetings where people actually showed up and participated. In December, we got an unexpected piece of news. The architectural firm, Bennett and Associates, had been fined by the Nevada State Contractors Board for their role in the scandal. They had known the project was fraudulent, but had proceeded anyway. The firm's principals received professional sanctions, and they were required to implement new ethical training for all employees. It was a small victory, but an important one. Everyone who had participated in the fraud was being held accountable. The following spring, I was approached by a homeowner from a different HOA in Henderson. His name was Michael, and he had read about what happened in Riverside Meadows. His own HOA board was engaging in questionable practices, nothing as blatant as what Sharon had done, but concerning nonetheless. "I don't know where to start," he told me. "Everyone in my neighborhood is frustrated, but no one knows how to fight back." I spent an hour with him, sharing what we had learned, how to request financial documents, how to organize homeowners, how to use Nevada HOA law to protect your rights, how to find good legal help, how to document everything. "The key is transparency and solidarity," I told him. "The board can push around one or two people. They can't push around the whole community." Michael took notes and asked questions and thanked me profusely. A few months later, He emailed to tell me that his community had successfully challenged their board and implemented new financial oversight procedures. I realized then that our fight had ripple effects I hadn't anticipated. We had become a model, a proof of concept. Other communities were watching and learning. In May, we celebrated the pool's 3rd anniversary with a big party. There was a DJ, a buffet, games for kids, and a general atmosphere of celebration. Nearly every homeowner showed up. Patricia gave a short speech. 3 years ago, we faced a crisis that could have torn this community apart. Instead, it brought us together. We learned that we're stronger united than divided. We learned that vigilance is the price of good governance. And we learned that sometimes when you fight for what's right, you actually win. So here's to our beautiful pool, to our wonderful community, and to all of us. Everyone cheered. Kids jumped in the water. Music played. The desert sun shone down on a community that had been tested and emerged stronger. I looked around at the faces, friends and neighbors, people I had fought alongside, people who had shown courage when it would have been easier to stay silent. We had saved more than a pool. We had saved the idea of what a community should be. Emma tugged on my arm. "Come swim with me, Daddy." "Absolutely." I jumped into the clear, cool water, and for a moment, everything was perfect. The sun overhead, my daughter's laughter, my wife waving from the deck, my son doing cannonballs with his friends. This was what we had fought for. This simple, beautiful, ordinary joy. And it was worth every moment of the struggle. As the afternoon wore on and the party continued, I climbed out of the pool and dried off, sitting next to Angela under our favorite umbrella. She was reading again, looking peaceful and content. "Happy?" I asked. She looked up and smiled. "Very you." "Yeah, I really am. No regrets. About fighting the board, none." It was the right thing to do. Even though it was stressful and scary and consumed our lives for months. Even then, some things are worth fighting for. She reached over and squeezed my hand. "I love you, Marcus Chen. Your stubbornness saved our pool. I prefer to call it determination. Call it whatever you want. I'm just glad we didn't back down." As the sun began to set, families started packing up and heading home. Kids protested, not wanting the day to end. Parents promised they could come back tomorrow. I helped fold up chairs and put away leftover food. Patricia and Helen were coordinating the cleanup, efficient as always. "Another successful event," Patricia said. "The community fund is in good shape and everyone had a great time." "That's how it's supposed to work," I said. "Yes, it is, and we make sure it stays that way." Walking home that evening, my family tired and sunburned and happy, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. We had taken a stand. We had fought corruption. We had won. And in the process, we had learned something valuable. That ordinary people, when they work together with determination and courage, can overcome extraordinary challenges. That no one is above accountability. That communities are worth fighting for. The lights in the pool area came on behind us, glowing blue in the twilight. Tomorrow, they would open again. Kids would swim. Parents would relax. The community would come together. Because we had stood up when it mattered, because we had refused to accept injustice. Because sometimes the good guys really do win, and that was worth everything.